Live! Believe Nation, happy Thursday. Thursday is my public facing day, so I'm doing interviews and hangouts and IG Lives and podcasts and Skype calls and all day long, all day long. It started with my Movement Makers program this morning, which was awesome, tons of fun. And now it's moving on to interviews and Skypes and all that. So now we're going to bring in a special guest. We're going to do a that you guys can meet a very special person and also hopefully get some advice along the way. Here we go. Happy Thursday. Okay. I sent you, hey Taylor, I sent you the invite. So it says waiting on you right there. Welcome IG Live with Angela. Welcome, a whole bunch of people joining in. Welcome Marley. Welcome Digven. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Thursday. I see the hearts. I love it. Stanley Art and Design. Welcome. I like that name. Stanley Art and Design. Now I'm curious, what do you design? Rena, welcome. Kuzo class in the house. Hey, Taylor, I invited you. It says it's waiting for you. Let me try inviting you again. All right. I invited you again. Waiting on. Oh, here we go. Hey! There she is.
Evan.
How you
How
doing?
are you? I'm good. How are you?
Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Taylor Fogg from Miss World America, New Hampshire. Are you actually from New Hampshire?
I'm actually from Colorado originally. I'm
All
sure
right. Well,
you're aware the whole state preliminary thing was a little bit different this year. So New Hampshire is what I'm representing. My dad's side of the family's from New Hampshire originally, so it's still very special to me to be able to represent the state of New Hampshire.
all right. Awesome. So, part of the Miss World America competition is Beauty with a Purpose, where every contestant has to have a purpose, some big goal that they're trying to chase down, a big mission they're on. And I was training the contestants, and I gave away 10 one-on-one sessions. So Taylor was in the live training, and now we're gonna help her one-on-one figure out her messaging around her purpose. So what are you doing? What's Beauty with a Purpose for you?
Yeah, so my Beauty with a Purpose project is called Growing New Lives, and through this initiative, it's really health and wellness based. So I'm doing things like hiking and fitness initiatives, as well as teaching women and children in shelters the benefits and skills of hydroponic and aquaponic gardening so that they have a way to sustain themselves in the future once they get out of their transitional homes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why this cause?
It's important to me for a variety of reasons. So for the past 6 years or so, I've been fundraising and advocating for an organization called CASA, which provides advocacy to children who have been abused and neglected and are navigating the foster care system. That's been some of my most rewarding volunteer work to date. So I knew that anything in the future, I was really passionate about helping this community of people. That in conjunction with the fact that my family and my local community fell victim to the most devastating forest fire in state's history in 2013, that really opened my mind to environmentalism and sustainability, and that really became a passion of mine. So those two things combined with the fact that I'm a competitive triathlete and wanting to empower other people to live a healthy and active lifestyle, each of those facets of who I am kind of went into the development of Growing New Lives. And
Did you go through the foster care system yourself?
I did not, no. So my plans are to become an attorney practicing in public health policy and specifically in pediatric advocacy. And so I wanted to have a skill set and volunteer for an organization that kind of had a legal interconnectedness. And I ended up being super passionate about it, and it reaffirmed my interest to go into law. So that's kind of where that connection comes from.
So why do you care so much about the foster system?
I think it's really special to be able to help an individual who's gone through an adversity and help them see their fullest potential. My very first case with CASA, I'm not allowed to disclose names because of confidentiality.
Yeah, that's fine.
But the child was found in the back of a car in freezing weather. They were born with a dependency on methamphetamine. And through the process of being a CASA, I was able to see them grow and turn into a bubbly, athletic child, find them a forever home where they are now having a really deep bond with their with a relative and with their biological sibling. That's something that's really, and it just really tugs at my heartstrings every time I think about it, to know that I was part of that journey, and to think of, okay, how can I help people in the future in a similar way.
So CASA, is it COSA?
CASA. Court of
Oh,
Finance Special.
casa, so like Italian house kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. When you first started with CASA, was it just you wanted to volunteer somewhere and then you picked this place and it just happened to be there and then you got connected deeply because of the stories, or did you actually seek them out and you had to go help people who were in the shelter system?
It's a little bit of both. So in college, all growing up, I exposed myself to different types of community service. I went to Columbia University, and so that enabled me to work. I'm not sure if you know where it's located in New York City, but it's right next to Harlem. So I sought out opportunities to work with disadvantaged children in the local area, and through a variety of different service opportunities, I came across CASA and started volunteering with them. Or fundraising for them. You can't actually become an advocate until you're 21. So after I graduated, because it is pretty time consuming. So after I graduated, I went ahead and became a CASA immediately that summer, and just haven't really turned back since.
And the desire to help disadvantaged children comes from where? You feel privileged and you should give back, or like why?
It's always been an interest of mine, disadvantaged children in particular, because I do think that I had a pretty privileged upbringing, and I know that people have faced a lot more adversity than I have, and I want to be able to make sure that other people have similar opportunities to what I was afforded, and put them on track to be able to get there. Because children who are lower income or who have faced adversity don't necessarily have somebody always advocating for them, always being on their side.
Cool. I like it. So have you made your video yet for talking about this cause? Are you working on it?
I'm most of the way through. So I've done almost all of the video portions, but I am just tweaking my final script for the voiceover part.
Okay.
And yep, so it's almost come together. I just have to edit the clips and everything.
So what I recommend is, like, big picture, what's the big problem that we're trying to solve? So if it's what's that?
There's a bunch of problems. I mean, it's hard to go ahead and solve every little thing, of
Well,
course, but to make a small difference is what we're here to do.
Yeah, it's hard. What you want to do is make it easy for somebody to wrap their head around you, because you're going to be going up against all these other contestants. Why should I pick you versus somebody else? Everybody's got a great cause. There's nobody who's got like a bad cause. It's all charity. It's all good. But why should I care about yours versus somebody else's? Somebody may not, the judges may also have their own causes that they care about. And your job is to try to put your cause, maybe not number one on their list, but you want it to now be in their top 5, where they may not be thinking about disadvantaged children, but because of your story and what you're trying to do, now they suddenly care about it more instead of whatever number 5 was on their list. So I think having the two makes it a challenge, because it makes it hard to wrap my head around, well, what is Taylor going to do? So the connection to like the kids is great. Fitness even kind of connects. It can connect. Like, how do you get out? How do you start building confidence? How do you build a better life for yourself? Well, fitness can be a solution. The environment is a tougher one to, like, it feels like it's a different bucket. So, like, what is Taylor saying for? What are we trying to do? So the reason I was asking those questions, try to draw some lines to get some kind of a theme together. Like, the exercise can fit into the kids, but I don't know how the environment fits in. It could be a secondary thing, but I would pick a primary thing that you're going for, so that Taylor is about helping disadvantaged children, so that if you win Miss World America, that's what the message is gonna be. And it doesn't mean you don't care about the other stuff. And maybe part of the activities are gonna be getting kids and going for runs in the forest and teaching them about nature and all that stuff as well. But having one, you want the judges to come away with one core theme that Taylor Fogg is all about.
Right.
Is the children one like the core theme for you? Does that feel right?
That's pretty integral, definitely. Those other facets of it are things that contribute to who I am and other kind of almost their effects that go along with what the project is doing. So, but the main thrust of the project is to provide individuals who have had very traumatic experiences, provide them the empowerment so that they replace potentially negative behaviors or negative self-esteem issues, that sort of thing, with something that's very positive, whether that's fitness, whether that's them feeling that they're really contributing to sustaining themselves in the future by having an economically and environmentally sustainable way to feed themselves and their families. That's really the thrust, is to help them prepare for the future.
Got it. So at the top, like, what's the problem and how big is it? So how widespread is this problem? And I mean, do you have the stats and numbers and studies and everything to kind of back it up?
There's plenty of statistics. If we're going from the perspective of domestic violence, 1 in 4 women will be subject to domestic violence at some point in their lifetime. What is really impactful about this and why people should care is that in the United States each year there's 8 million lost days of paid work that women are losing out on because of abuse perpetuated by current or former partners. And 98% of domestic violence cases also involve financial abuse. So even women who were on their feet, they really had their stuff together, they're academically motivated, or they're established in a career, they can fall victim to these circumstances where they end up being at the lowest of low. And we really should take it upon ourselves to help these women and children get to the point where they can be successful in the future.
So that's where you need to, like, you got to draw the line between making it all make sense. So all the stats you just gave were great, but now we're talking about women who are victims of abuse. So how does that relate to disadvantaged children? It's like, because they come from a disadvantaged area, then they get into bad relationships and become victims of abuse?
Well, the through line here is, I mean, my passion for CASA came from finding the organization through basically working with disadvantaged children all throughout college. But CASA really does work with children who are in the foster care system due to abuse and neglect. And in many cases, women are also being affected by that same abuse and neglect. And in addition, maybe if you're only targeting domestic violence or intimate violence, children are often in the same bubble as that because they're either witnessing it or they're experiencing the violence themselves.
So are you trying to help the kids or are you trying to help the women?
Both.
So this is where it's like, it's hard to grasp because there's like, what is the through line that you want to help women, you want to help disadvantaged kids, you want to help the environment, you want to help, personal fitness. It's like, there's got to be one theme that people can land on, but then everything else flows from. Otherwise, they won't remember you because it's too many things.
Okay.
So what's the thing?
The main thing is the helping domestic violence, abuse, and survivors, period, and that encapsulates both women and children.
Okay, great. So now we want to help domestic violence survivors, which is typically the women. I mean, it happens both ways, but right. It's typically the women, women and kids. Great. So now it's, how big of a problem is this, right? So you had some stats on that, which is great, but like, how big of a problem I want to help solve domestic violence. How big of a problem is it? And then telling me stories of it. And it could be great to have, like, the child that you helped from CASA, found in the truck, that, emotional story for you. Was that person, that child, a victim of domestic violence?
That individual is more a victim of neglect, I
Okay.
would say. But depending on your definitions of neglect versus abuse, I mean, if you are a pregnant woman who is still taking drugs and your baby is born with a dependence on that drug, in my definition, that is abuse.
Okay, so it's telling the big picture story, then giving me an example from your own, like, I would love to have an example. Do you have an example from your own work of helping one of the mothers or the women survivors?
Sure. So an example of a woman whose story really resonates with me, this woman named Tanya. Tanya was younger than I am currently when she fell into an abusive relationship, and she was someone who's academically motivated. She fell into this abusive relationship with this man. He battered her to the point where when she went to the ER to get cured, she had to lie about her injuries and say she got them in the weight room. She was the financial backbone for both of them, and he drained out her bank account to go ahead and buy drugs. He basically made her credit very poor and put her in crippling debt. And it just really, it's traumatic when you hear those stories, because I'm thinking at 19, that could have easily been me. I had a lot of similar qualities to this young woman who was academically motivated, who was somebody who wanted to help the world. And someone like that, when they go to a shelter, they need all the support that they can get. And we really need to build up women like that and help them prepare for the future, remove them from bad situations, and help them move forward.
So what did you do to help her?
So that's an individual who's been connected to the CASA community, but is not somebody that I work directly with. But whose story I connected with very much, because I drew so many parallels between her and myself.
Okay. And then, so you when you hear a story like that, what is your then response? Like, what did you do to then help? Maybe not her, but what was your next action?
Sure. So my recent actions have been reaching out to domestic violence shelters and seeing what I can do to provide my platform, my project of growing new lives to them. And it's basically establishing these gardening starter kits so that women can go ahead and learn how to garden themselves, so that when they get out of the shelter, they know how to feed their families in a way that's healthier and more sustainable. It's also basically taking initiatives to go ahead and encourage children to become more fit and women to be more fit, whether that's hiking, whether that's running, other fitness initiatives, so that they have a way to become healthier and to have better habits, to lift their self-esteem, release stress and anxiety, all of those negative things that typically are associated with survivors.
Yeah. Now it's starting to make sense. I like it. Yeah. But so this
getting
is
that across in 10 minutes or in a 2-minute video.
Yeah. But it's getting there. It's like, I want to help people who are victims of abuse. Women and the kids, but especially like focusing on the mothers. If you help the mothers, you can help the kids as well. The problem is they don't have any self-confidence. They've just gone through this. They already had low self-confidence probably going into it. Now coming out of it, they feel destroyed. So how do we build self-confidence? Well, we get them invested into their physical fitness, because when you change your body, you start to change your mindset too. We teach them how to, the gardening is looking after yourself, so you can feed yourself, so you can feel worthy again, right? So you're giving them skill sets that will help build their confidence, and then therefore create a better life and provide a better example for their kids. So it's less about like saving the rainforest, environmental, and more about like mindset of the survivors to start to feel like they have some confidence again and can be a valuable human again and not be another victim, right?
Right, exactly.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's now it's like instead of 4 different things, it's all here it is and makes sense.
Here's how to deliver it. Yep.
Yeah, so when you're looking at your talk, video, but also when you're doing your one-on-ones, it's like right away I need to know why domestic violence, like how big is it, how rampant is it? Because I don't know. I mean, the judges won't know. When you talk about domestic violence, people know that it's a big deal, it's important, but how many families does it impact? The fact is like 70%. That seems like a crazy number to me, but that's a big problem. And so you actually caring about how big a number that is, and then diving down into specifics. So I like the story about how it resonated with you, but then what the judges are gonna want to see is, okay, so it's great that you got inspired by this woman who's like you, but now what are you actually doing, right? So that when you're using, if you become Miss World America, you're using their platform to then do even more. So that next year becomes all about basically trying to end domestic violence in America, right? Like that's then the theme that people can get behind, right?
Especially right now with COVID and all the lockdowns internationally and domestically. Cases
I can't
of
imagine.
Domestic violence have risen at least 20% on average. In some areas,
That seems low to
others.
me. Like if you're in a bad relationship, 20% seems crazy low. Like I can't imagine if you're in a destructive relationship and you can't go out and you can't see friends and you can't seek help. And yeah, I mean, that seems crazy. That's so timely right now. That definitely should be in there about how big a problem it is.
That's how I laid out my videos. That's what I'm leading with because it is super relevant. I mean, it's always relevant because it's always hurting people. But right now, it's increased even more. It's just almost ironic and kind of tragic that I've been competing this year when it's become an even greater issue.
Yeah. So it definitely should be the lead in your video, but also whenever you're doing your talks, when you're doing, ultimately, if you win, you're going to be doing interviews and podcasts and TV shows and all this stuff. Having that be the lead. So when you're talking to the judges and they're asking you, what's your big idea, that's the lead. So if you rewind this, this doesn't matter. This is training. This is the practice run. We started talking about hiking and fitness, right? And then gardening and shelters. And like, I don't know where we're going with this, but now it all makes sense. But they're not going to do the work to ask those questions, but that's fine. This is practice mode. So leading with how big a deal domestic violence is, and then timely right now, 2020, this is more important than ever. And COVID's not going away next week, so we're going to have to deal with this, right? So it's so ripe, they want to be a part of something big, right? Miss World America gives you the crown, you're going to go do something big. And so it's timely right now. You got to really convey. I would try to find some numbers on it too. I think it's got to be more than 20%. That seems so crazy low.
It's higher in certain areas. And I mean, there's different ways to think about that, right? Because sure, there's more likely to be abuse when people are around each other constantly. But at the same time, those women might be having their phones controlled. They might not be able to get away to go ahead and make the critical call to the police department or whoever, law enforcement or a friend. And that's what's really scary.
Yeah, well, and just the stress level everybody's under, so it's got to be making everything worse. The services might not be available at the usual time like they used to be before because they're working from home. Like this, I'm just going off the top of my head. I'm sure.
Exactly. No,
I'm sure there's like. I'm sure there's lots of other stats, and like you got to make that feel. You find the most impactful, even if it's just. So even if 20% is across the country, even if you just bring it down to New Hampshire, in New Hampshire it's up 80% or something, right? Like, put it on my mindset that this is a really big deal. Instinctively, I can feel that it's a big deal, but it's your job to put it on the judge's awareness with data to say, right? So it's the personal stories which comes from the people that you've helped or met, or someone in the news that you learned about, backed up by, like, that pulls on the heartstrings, backed up by the data to say this is a huge deal that we need to fix, especially the next 12 to 18 months is going to be a really tough time in America for people who are victims of abuse, and I want to solve that problem.
Definitely. Well, and
right?
the volume overall is just going to be higher. So in one way that's obviously horrible, but on the other hand, the optimistic way of looking at that is there's many more women that we can help get back on their feet in the future. So it's weighing those two things, definitely.
Yeah, and you become the voice of hope and the voice of reason, and like, help me get a bigger platform so we can really make a change in America, right? So it's like the bigger picture.
Right, definitely.
This is a big problem. We have to solve it. I want to solve this. Jump on board this wagon and let's go, right?
Everyone's
So
not.
yeah, and it's embracing. So you're smart. You're beautiful. You've got a huge heart. You've got a great cause. The thing that you, beyond just the structure that we went through of like lead with the big thing and then help it make sense, it's tapping into the energy. So there's been a couple moments in this where you've come alive, and you felt like, I felt the connection when you talked about the person on the truck, the kid on the truck, and how bad you felt about them. But otherwise, it's kind of like clean, polished, but soft-spoken. And this is where you need to summon the, like, no, this matters. This is a big deal. This is important because, give me a microphone, a huge one, and I want to spread this across America because we have to solve this problem. And I'm an introvert, so that's it's a skill set to kind of work on and develop, but it's tapping into the passion. Like, you're doing this for a reason. You're not doing this just because you want to put something on your resume. Like, this actually matters to you. And that passion and energy is what we need to feel in your videos, in your interviews, ultimately if you win on everything else that you end up doing. Because somebody who's louder with less heart can win because they're louder. And like, if you deeply feel connected to this cause, you have to summon not the loudness just for the sake of being loud, but you have to put it on people's radar that this really means something.
Sure.
And I'm the girl that make the change.
To the cause.
Bring what?
Command presence for the cause, essentially.
And it's going to come from like a deep caring that this has to happen. This is such a big deal. 70% of women are facing this right now. And I'm scared to know what it even is right now because of COVID. Like, the next 12 to 18 months is going to be a terrible time for people with domestic violence. I want to solve the problem. We need to shine a huge light on this right now because nobody's talking about it. I'm your girl to do it. Let's go. Right? Like, that gusto and energy, not all the time, not like for the whole video or the whole interview, but there has to be those moments that this really, really matters, and you have to summon the inner goddess, in there, like the inner leader, the inner Joan of Arc, to come out and lead the army. We're going to battle to solve this problem.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Cool. It's work. Like, when your heart's beating, like boom, 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 like that, you lean into it and you go for it. And it's hard. I know it's hard, but you've got a huge heart, and it's a good cause. And I think you could really take it far.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Cool. Well, thank you, Taylor. Good luck.
Thank
We're
you,
cheering you
Evan.
on, and can't wait to see how you do.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
It's been
Much
awesome.
love. Cheers.
Have a good one.